What is up, everybody? Good evening. This is another episode of On the Pipe Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tyler Shepherdson, and today is Tuesday, February 11th, 2020. This is the second edition, the second episode, the second week in a row of OTP Tuesdays, your weekly off-road results report. This week, I'm not going to lie to you, we're pretty much only talking about the full gas sprint enduro. Round number one, it happened down at GTR Complex in Gaston, South Carolina. We got a few great guests for you this evening. We got Craig Oberholzer, a good friend of the podcast. He's been on here several times. He's one of the OG OTP riders. He raced the Open B class. He'll kind of be going through his account of what happened this weekend. We also have the world famous second place overall finisher Ricky Russell making the switch this year from Ampro Yamaha to that Coastal Racing Husqvarna team. This is just his second race on that Husky. He raced National Enduro last weekend, and he raced the Sprint Enduro this past weekend. So we're going to hear from him, get his take on the new bike, on the new team, and how his race went. And then we're also going to be joined by Josh Guffey. He is a high-level, multi-time national champion motocross rider that has just recently made the switch to off-road. He raced off-road a little bit last year before making the full transition this year, where he intends to run the GNCC series and then probably the full gas series. We'll see how everything ends up, but we'll hear from him. Josh Guffey may not be the household name that you were thinking of, but he is the one. I'm sure you have seen the picture. We'll talk about it in detail later on. Mac Faint took a picture of a rider creaming a tree. I mean, hitting it head on, face to the tree, hands off the bars. It is an absolutely insane picture. We shared it on our Facebook, and by our, I mean the OTP page. It's also on Mac Faint's page, and it's also on Josh Guffey's page. If you haven't seen that picture yet, you probably haven't met online in the past few days, because I'm pretty sure that if you follow anything that has to do with a dirt bike and you've been on social media since Sunday or Saturday, you have seen this picture. It is absolutely insane. I reached out to Josh. He was kind enough to take some time out of his day to speak with us about it and speak with us about his transition into off-road. So we will get to that as well. But before all of that begins, I want to say a huge big thank you to our buddies over at Armored Graphics. That's armoredgraphics.com or at Armored Graphics on the social medias. They are longtime friends of the show. Paul Sajak, he was the first ever podcast guest of the show. He's largely the reason why the show exists, offering encouragement and helping me out along the way. He designed our logos. He designed basically all of our graphic stuff. And he also designs all of the Joe Gibbs Factory Racing, Suzuki. I don't even know who their other title sponsors are, so I'm not going to say someone. But that JGR-MX team, he does all the graphics for them. Armored Graphics are the exclusive graphic provider of the Joe Gibbs Racing motocross team. They're based here in Charlotte. So anytime you see one of them Suzukis out on the track, it is Armored Graphics that are on those bikes. With that being said, we also have an interview lined up. It is coming up this week or next week. Trying to work out the details. We're going to have JGR-MX's own Fast Freddie Noren. Freddie Noren is going to sit down. We're going to have a face-to-face conversation, so kind of a longer format podcast, kind of like the ones you guys have been used to in the past. But we're going to talk about Freddie, about his rise to the factory team, finishing top 10 in Moto last year in the outdoor series, and coming in swinging this year in Supercross before having a broken leg. So it really sucks that Freddie suffered a broken leg, but we're going to talk to him, hear all about it, and hear about his story leading up to this point. Be on the lookout for that show coming soon. But as always, we are here for OTP Tuesdays. It used to be OTP Weekly. It was a little bit sporadic. Now we're on Tuesdays. So OTP Tuesdays are here, and they are in full effect, and they will be coming at you all year long. Let me know if you guys want an On the Pipe podcast shirt. I will be at Mideast Hair Scrambles this weekend in Union, South Carolina, mainly to get ready and prepare for the following weekend, the first round of GNCC racing, the Big Buck GNCC, also in Union, South Carolina. So if you plan on racing Big Buck and you can make it down to Union this weekend as well, there is a Mideast race. It's right down the street from Big Buck. It's going to be raining this week. It's going to be raining next week. So it's going to be good practice in good conditions, similar to Big Buck, and get you all prepared and ready to go. Nevertheless, as I mentioned, I will be there with shirts, sizes small through 2X, $20 a piece. If you can't make it to any of the races, hit me up. $25. We'll get them sent out. It costs me a little bit more than that, but I just want to get shirts to people that even consider buying shirts. So if you want one, let me know. I got a whole box of them. We've actually sold quite a few. I think we only have 1 or 2 2Xs left. We only have a couple of smalls left. I ordered more of mediums and XL, so we still have plenty of those. But if you want one, feel free to hit me up. Let me know. Also designed by our good buddies at Armored Graphics and fulfilled through an affiliate of Armored Graphics. We'll just leave it at that. So, got friends helping us out left and right. I want to thank each and every single one of you guys for tuning into this podcast. It really means a lot to me that, one, anyone even listens to this show to begin with, and two, that people would spend their hard-earned money on buying a t-shirt to represent On the Pipe podcast. I've already sold way more shirts than I thought I could have ever imagined, so that really means a lot to me. And I think the first time I show up at a race and I see OTP shirts everywhere, it's going to be hard for me to believe. But keeping consistent on these OTP Tuesdays, we got some more solid interviews coming at you this week. We're going to keep doing it every week, and I want this thing to grow because everything that we as racers do, and by we, I mean that term very loosely because I'm super slow, but I do spend every single weekend at a race track just like the majority of you do. I want this thing to grow. Every one of us, every one of you, we deserve this recognition. We deserve this spotlight. And that is all I'm trying to do with the On the Pipe podcast, is really try to get that spotlight on off-road racers, bring the exposure to the sport that it deserves to have. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and get right into it. Our first guest of the evening is going to be everyone's favorite uncle, Uncle Mudhole, the local legend from Ohio. North Carolina claims him as our own now. Craig Oberholzer, Open B competitor. How's it going, Craig?
Good, man. How you doing?
Doing great. So, you got the Cowie. You've been ripping it. Ridden with you a few times. You're fast on it. You go down to the Sprint Enduro. Tell us about how your weekend went.
It went pretty good. I'm not a big guy on settings. I'm not very good at it. I kind of just wing it. My buddy Mark Hilton, MVR, took me up with some suspension right before we went down, and I didn't. I'm not a very good tester. So we went down kind of winging it, and it went good. The first 2 tests of the weekend, I felt like I rode good, and it was the second woods test. I had a pretty good crash and skinned myself up, messed the bike up a little bit. And it kind of made me shit the bed for Saturday. I think I got 10th or 11th on the day, which was not even close to where I assumed I would be. And there was a lot of fast guys from last year still in there. Luckily, Bradley was out of there, so I didn't have to embarrass him this weekend. But Hunter Barron, a boy from Georgia, I'm now buddies with, and a couple of other Cali guys. Parker Lane was down there, and had a lot of fun. And Saturday, and actually Sunday, we started around a little bit, and the track was completely beat. I mean, it was probably the roughest woods track I've rode in a long time ever, honestly. It was beat. So as the track got rougher, I actually got faster. I started feeling better and started getting some top fives. And I ended up settling for a 6th on Sunday, which I'm pretty happy with, considering I've rung my bell a couple good times. But somewhere to start the season off pretty good, and definitely somewhere to build from.
Hell yeah. I mean, that's always a good thing, especially when we're talking about the first round of the season. Obviously, you got the whole year to build on it, but I kind of felt bad, man, as one of the OG OTP riders that you are. haven't got a chance yet. I talked to you on the way back on Sunday, but didn't really hear much about your race. But you say you went down an enduro test this year. I remember last year you had a gnarly get off in the cross test. Is GTR just cursed for you? What's going on down there?
Yeah, I think in the off season we get on there and we drink too many beers, and I just don't pay attention. So, but we last year actually there was a triple step up on the cross test, and I wasn't a big fan of the singles before the takeoffs of all the jumps. So I think it was not my kind of motor track, and I don't have a kind of motor track. I'm not very good at it anyway. But I landed on the triple and went to hit the step up, and I guess I just choked up at the end and cased it by, I'd say, 3 inches. That's how close it felt, and I just splattered. So it ruined my weekend last year, and this weekend, luckily, I didn't get hurt. So I just I actually kind of hit my front wheel a little bit and skinned my side up a little bit, broke some handguards. So I can't really complain too much. I was able to get back up and race the rest of the weekend and got faster. So, yes, it probably is a little bit cursed. So hopefully next year, hopefully there's a local we get to go and beat it sometime.
Yeah, for sure. And you and I and Bradley Chapman, also one of the OG OTPers, we were down there just a couple weeks ago, and we kind of had a couple different loops burnt in. What was the track like this year? I wasn't able to make it out there, but what was the track like? Was it any of the stuff that we rode that day or anything that you were familiar with, or was it all brand new trail?
Yeah, so the cross test, I think they would have had a really good cross test laid out, and I think they did an awesome job with what they were given because it rained so much last week. I mean, there was tornadoes everywhere. I don't know, 2 or 3 inches of rain within 3 days before the race. So the moto track on Friday, the pictures I've seen, was underwater pretty much. So they didn't really get to run the moto how they wanted to. So they really had to put everything back in the back GP loop where everyone usually trains in the winter, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they did the best with what they had. And it ended up being pretty good. I mean, it was a little tight for me, but I think all in all, a lot of people had a lot of fun. But the woods loop, actually, I thought was awesome. It started on the left side, obviously, where it always starts, and it went right in. It started like the normal GP loop, and then it jumped into the pines, and it stayed in the pines on the left side. It didn't go on the right side of the property really any.
Mm-hmm.
On the side of the big moto, it stayed kind of by the clay track.
Yeah.
And I definitely never rode any of those trails, I don't think, because it was pretty gnarly. I mean, it was, if someone could go from the first test and then immediately go ride the second one, you would have no idea that's what it's going to end up like. Because, like I said earlier, it was so rough. It was almost like cupped out clay, like the sand gets cupped out. It was beat like a drum, but I really enjoyed it. I would say it's kind of close like the perimeter track that goes all the way around the place,
mm-hmm.
like the red clay, and it's kind of some tight corners. It was pretty similar to that. It just got so beat, and there was roots everywhere. And I think they did an awesome job. Eric Geese and Jason Hooper, they did an awesome job, and I was pumped to ride it.
Sweet. Yeah, I hate I missed it. That was the first sprinter I haven't been at in 3 seasons, so I wasn't even able to see any of the track. But I was talking to Bradley a little bit and talking to you now, and your results based on what I know you can do and how fast you are. Does it seem like that Open B class is a little bit faster this year than it has been in the past?
Yeah, so last year, even after I got hurt, I tried to ride Sunday last year, and I still got some top fives. And this year, I was riding my tail off, and I feel a lot faster now on this Cali than I do on my bike last year, my Huts. And I think there's a lot of new guys showing up. It's kind of the moto crowd is really starting to come out. I think that was the original intent of the series. And a lot of stuff, and it shows on the cross test times between the woods, you know. Like I said, I was like Parker Lane. He was killing me on the cross test. And after it got real bad whooped out and he had motor suspension, he hadn't really rode them like that. He was telling me in between tests, like, dude, he said, you guys are going to kill me on the woods test now. And he was still flying, but you could definitely tell there started to be kind of a difference between a woods rider and a moto rider halfway through. But, yeah, for sure, I think I don't know. I know it was beat, but I think they're doing a great job.
Yeah, and I mean, when you're talking about sand, especially somewhere like GTR, where it's got an interesting mixture of clay and sand and roots. It's kind of a unique territory or a unique trail, unique dirt to that area. So, I mean, it's kind of hard to avoid some of that stuff, but it sounds like they did the best of what they had, and it sounds like everybody had a good time. But
yeah, I think it's whoever just has the balls to send it, because some of those guys, like the new guys in Open B we were talking about, I think some of them just don't care. And I was, I feel like I was a little bit on the edge with what I was prepared for. And some of those kids, I mean, I don't know what they're eating, maybe some 2 bowls of Wheaties in the morning, but they were sending it a little bit harder when I kind of felt like I could go. So yeah, definitely. I think it pertains. A lot of riders like that place because a lot of people come down there from all over the East Coast, and so I think everybody feels kind of comfortable at GTR, and with how sketchy it actually is once it gets beat. I think everybody kind of enjoys, and you get plenty of traction, that's for sure. So I think everybody enjoyed it.
Yeah, and GTR is such a hub for everyone. Kind of like you were saying, everyone, it seems like, spends their off season there and training. But I got to say, man, I am super impressed by little Drew Calloway. It's not going to be too much longer where I can say little Drew Calloway, but first year up on big bikes, man, killed us at the Sumter Enduro, and I'm pretty sure he got the win in Open B, right?
Oh, yeah, he smoked my ass every single test. I think I might have got him in a cross test when he crashed, and that was about as lucky as I got all weekend compared to him. And he was rolling. He was usually 20 seconds ahead of me in the woods test easy. So, and I know some of the other guys who were top 3, and I think they're my age. I mean, I'm 22, and Drew's 15.
Yeah, 15 or 16 max.
He was rolling. Yeah, I was joking around with him before we took off. Everyone was talking about how fast he was. I said, he can be as fast as he wants, but he looks like Ellen DeGeneres. He looks like a 30-year-old lesbian. So that's about all the jokes I had for him. That's all I had. I could shame him a little bit, but then he just got smoked my ass as soon as we started racing. So luckily he's not running up in B and GNCC, which is where I plan on staying. But he is definitely going to smoke me all year in Open B unless I do something about it. And I don't know. That's a prescription I don't think I can fill right now. He's rolling.
Man, it's insane how fast he's going, especially given the fact that I think he has to stay going that fast because if he came to a stop, I don't think his feet can touch the ground. So I think he'd just tip over, which makes it even more impressive that he goes as fast as he goes on a big bike.
Yeah, for sure. He's about 4'11". So
on a good day.
On a good day, yeah. I mean, yeah, he's about. I think he's actually a little bit taller than Trevor Barrett, but still, he's short as shit. So.
Oh man, yeah, definitely not.
Him, he's taller than somebody.
Definitely not talking bad about Drew. I got all the respect for him. Coming off of mini bikes, stepping up. I mean, dude, he's holding his own on big bikes, and I think he's gonna be a force to be reckoned with. Sprint enduros, GNCCs, national enduros, whatever he chooses to race, really.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool because I'm buddies with his brother Ty too.
Yep.
And that whole group that hangs out with him, the Babbitts.
Their parents, like the Callaway parents, they're all real good people.
Yeah, even my buddy Cody Smith, they're all real good people, and you kind of hang out with them around not around races, and they're the typical brothers. I mean, they're just shitting on each other all the time, being stupid, fighting, and I think that's the reason they're actually not racing. Drew's not running Light B because they don't want to fight. Ty's actually running Light B, so they. I think they don't want any more fist fights in the Callaway house, which I don't blame them anyway. I'd probably be sick of it over the years, and it was cool actually. The weekend me, you, and Bradley went down to GTR like 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
They were down there too, and me and his dad were sitting there on the GP course in between Upside and Riding, and those two were going at it. I mean, they were bar to bar, hitting each other in corners, being stupid, and I don't know, it was pretty cool. I'm sure that was cool growing up, and I'm sure Ty helped out Drew getting a little bit quicker over the years. So
yeah, for sure. And same thing like you were saying, we were down there a couple weeks ago. I was talking to their parents, and that's exactly what their mom said. She was like, Ty and Drew fight enough as it is. She's like, I don't know if I could deal with them if they race the same class. So we're making them race different classes at every race, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it sucks. That's why I called him this weekend. I said, please don't ride the midi. Just stay away from me. Like, I want to win something. Leave me alone.
That's why I'm going to 25 plus. So that way I don't have to deal with you guys, and you guys can go as fast as you want. I'm gonna do my own thing.
Yeah, I don't know. The wall might be a little bit poor after this weekend too. Next weekend or this coming weekend's Mid East and then Big Buck. I'm definitely trying to go to Big Buck. So I don't know. We'll have to get on the corner a little bit, see if we can make some stripper dollars before the weekend.
Hey, man, roll the pant leg up a little bit, show a little leg. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, when you got fantastic legs like me, you got to get out there every once in a while and show them off. So,
Throw you a hitch hauler on the back of that Uber mobile, and you'll be good to go.
Yeah, shout out to LKN for some spin classes Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Hell yeah. So, Craig, you mentioned you're racing Big Buck. Are you going to be at Mid-East this coming weekend?
That's the plan. We'll see how much mud we get. If it's a super big, nasty mud race, I am for sure going. That's actually the only thing I like riding is nasty mud down here. So hopefully we get more rain and it doesn't cancel, and I'll definitely plan on showing up. If not, I will try to show up regardless. But if it's muddy, I'm busting out all the stops. I will show up if it's muddy.
Man, you sound like you're from Southern Ohio or something.
Yeah, we're getting there, man. I'm getting the Southern twang. I'll go up to the bar in Ohio every once in a while, and I'll say, "Why the hell do you talk like that?" I'm like, "Well, my buddies are Southern rednecks. I don't really know what to tell you."
Done rubbed off on you.
Yeah, not in a good way either.
Well, Craig, man, thank you for taking some time out talking with us, and thank you for doing what you do. But is there anybody that you'd like to say thank you to real quick while you're on here?
Yeah, first Nick Rupert and Nicole, Jake Walburn, all my Ohio boys. They gave me a place to stay this weekend. Cody's going to let me crash in the back of the van, but I guess Nick wanted to cuddle. So Nick hooked me up with a place to stay. That was awesome to them. Good seeing Cody Meeks. And I actually had to run over to the Cowie support for some bike tuning over the weekend. My battery was 20% like the whole weekend. I didn't know it wouldn't. I stalled and I couldn't get it to fire back up. So those guys hooked me up with a hot battery for the weekend, and it was super cool to have me out. So I'd like to thank Cowie. I think it's Sabbath Trackside Sport, and Nick and Nicole, Jake, Cody, Linda, all my buddies for hanging out all weekend. It was a good way to start 2020.
Heck yeah. And I want to say my own thank you to Nick and Nicole for buying some OTP shirts. It means a lot. And thank you very much for orchestrating that deal and bringing some OTP shirts to them. Yeah, nice family. And in case you didn't know, Nicole, her alter ego is She-Shep, where she tries to be like T-Shep. But
oh, word? Hell yeah. A little bit prettier than I don't know. I don't think T-Shep would look good with a ponytail. So that's it. Good for her.
My head,
T-Shep, huh? That's different.
My head is too big already, so I'm not growing my hair out. But yeah, so they sent me a message one day, and she was doing her best full gas announcer T-Shep impression, and she called herself She-Shep. So now that's the only thing I refer to her as is She-Shep.
Yeah, while we're speaking of that, don't leave us hanging ever again. So we don't need a Mid-East announcer at every full gas. So
I'll do my best, man. I'll do my best. We'll see what we can make of it.
Everyone else felt pretty good because they said their name. They called everybody's name individually. But at least when
I don't got time for that.
What were we? Connor Smith was the open assholes. Is that what you said?
The open a-holes.
The open a-holes. Sorry, I didn't mean to cuss. That was in Christian. Oh, my bad. Oh yeah, open B. We were open Bush. There we go.
Hell yeah.
Shout out to Bush and Paul Mall. So hell yeah.
Race fuel.
Yes, sir. All right, man. Well, thanks for having me on.
All right, man. Thanks, Craig. We'll talk to you later on.
Awesome.
That's it. Well, there you have it, hearing from Craig Gubergazer, a.k.a. Craig Oberdozer, a.k.a. his actual birth name, Craig Oberholzer. That's why it was so hard for me to pronounce at the beginning. I've pretty much exclusively called him Craig Gubergazer with the occasional Oberdozer. So big thank you to Craig for joining us on here. He is a wild child. I always appreciate his opinion on everything. He's a good and close friend of OTP Podcast, one of the OTP rippers himself. As we talked about, we were down there riding GTR together just a few weeks ago. So always good to hear from Craig. Really awesome just to get his kind of account for things. As we mentioned, he was out there racing as well. 2 hard crashes 2 years in a row at the GTR complex. Obviously, never what you want, but nonetheless, it happened, and he still finished both years. So really awesome for him to be able to do that. But speaking of crashes, if you have logged on to social media at all, whether you have Facebook or Instagram, there is no doubt that you have seen the picture taken by Mac Faint of a rider smoking a tree. I mean, absolutely smoking a tree. The picture, I mean, it's it's a good one. When I was looking at it, I first saw it, I was just scrolling through, and I saw it, and I was like, yep, this dude's definitely in the hospital. It was nice knowing him. It was cool that he came out to race, but he's no longer with us, unfortunately. Turns out he won the Lights A class even with that crash. If you've seen the picture, that's awesome. If you haven't, go to On the Pipe Podcast Facebook page or go to Mac Faint, his Facebook page or his Instagram page, or Nick Guffey. Josh Guffey. Josh Guffey is the actual rider that hit the tree. He posted the picture as well. So any three of those accounts, go and look at that picture. Before you listen to this interview, you have to see the picture. It makes all the difference in the world. He hit a tree, center punched it as center punching can get. His hands, both of them, flew off the handlebars. His right hand is still full locked, wide open throttle. His left hand is acting like he's still grabbing the handlebar, but his face, literally his face, is hitting the tree. His bike is hitting the tree. It was absolutely insane, and that sparked my interest that we have to talk to him. We have to hear his account of what happened, and that's when I started looking at it. I was like, dang, like he's probably pretty messed up. I don't know if we're going to be able to talk to him or not. I read the number plate. I looked up the results, and it was the winner of Lights A. I said, there's no possible way that it is the winner of Lights A. Turns out it is the winner of Lights A. He did that during the race and still ended up finishing the race, but not only finishing the race faster than anybody else in that Lights A class. And he kind of goes into detail here about what it took to be able to get his bike back out there to finish. So we're going to go ahead and head to the phone line now with the Lights A class winner for the weekend, Josh Guffey. We got him on the phone. Josh, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, no problem. So first of all, congratulations on your win this weekend. How did the race go overall as a whole for you?
Yeah, thank you. It was good. We kind of took command right off the get-go. The Enduro test I kind of struggled with right at first, but the cross test I was, doing really good on it. I loved the way that both courses were, kind of whooped out, and it was super sandy, and I'm from South Georgia, so I'm used to riding in those sandy conditions, so I thrive in that stuff. But yeah, it was fun, and I, like I said, kind of took command right in the beginning, and then, kind of towards the end there, it got a little hairy, hitting that tree and being able to, forfeit up the lead right there. But I was able to get it back with 2 tests to go and bring it home. So it was a fun weekend and a really good learning experience. And, nice to, know that we can work good under pressure like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think anybody who follows anything with off-road has seen that picture of you hitting the tree, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But so correct me if I'm wrong, but seemed like a pretty accomplished motocross rider that has just recently making the transition into off-road?
Yeah, I raced motocross from when I was 5 until I was 19. I did the whole Loretta Lynn scene, all the amateur nationals and everything like that. I've had some success over the years. I've won 2 championships, and like I said, I was going for it in the motocross scene, and just kind of got, I guess you could say, burnt out from it. And to be honest, I never really thought anything about off-road in that whole time period of me racing motocross. I mean, it was kind of like motocross was the only thing I thought about. And when I was over it, my good friend Tom Fleming, he's huge in the off-road scene. He said, you should try a GNCC. He said, you're built for those things. And I said, to be honest, I've never even thought about it. And, I was just to the point where I was like, I just want to ride my dirt bike. I mean, I don't care what I'm doing. I just want to ride. So I tried one, and I tried a woods race. It was the FTR in Florida, and I really enjoyed it. So, I kind of decided that's what I was going to do. And unfortunately, I
was battling a few injuries last year, so I was only able to complete 5 GNCCs and 2 sprint enduros. But this year we're going into it healthy. We learned a lot last year, so we feel like we're definitely ahead of the curve from where we were last year coming into this season. So, and obviously being able to grab that win this weekend, it's starting to, pay off, and hopefully it'll pay dividends in the upcoming GNCC series.
Yeah, man. It seems like you obviously are more prepared heading into this year. Like you said, coming out round 1 of the Full Gas series, getting the win. I was looking over some stuff from last year. So the couple that you did do, I saw that you got some top 3s in some test times, but overall probably not the results you were looking for last year. What do you think made the difference between how you finished in the couple that you did last year versus coming out at round 1 and taking that Lights A win?
Yeah, well, the big thing for me, I knew that it was going to be a big transition moving from motocross to off-road, but man, I didn't know it was going to be that big of a transition. I mean, it was, every single thing from bike setup to, what I did on the bike training during the week. It took a 180 turn. So, I mean, it was totally different and off the wall from what I was used to. So, me and my dad, we were working hard with the bike setup, and that was really one of our biggest problems for sure, because the last 3 rounds we had, bike problems. I broke a chain and, just minor stuff like that that's so easy to fix that you just don't think about coming from motocross. And, now just really knowing what to expect and having the bike dialed, like I said, and, everything like that, and being able to stay healthy during the off season and being able to stay, healthy coming into this season for sure is really helped us out a lot. So, I mean, that's a big deal for me. So it's that's definitely the biggest reason, why we're so prepared coming into this season. And, obviously it's showing, and hopefully we can keep moving forward like we are.
Yeah, and I mean that's pretty cool to hear stuff even down to the bike setup from transitioning into a high level motocross and jumping right into the A class. So obviously a high level of off-road racing as well. Now as far as this season, what's your plans as far as racing? What series are you planning to be at, and I mean what's your goals for 2020?
Yeah, my goals for 2020, I definitely want to be up there battling for the win. I'm still going to be racing the A 4-stroke lights class for GNCC, and obviously Lights A for sprint enduro. We're definitely doing the whole GNCC series. I really want to, be a title contender for that, and I definitely believe that I can be a title contender. And same for the sprint enduro series. I mean, we're gonna, be fighting for this thing, and it would be awesome to be able to, even win both titles for sure. I mean, I definitely work hard during the week, and I feel that I deserve it. So, I mean, that's the plan right now. We're going to go in guns blazing and, be smart and make good decisions, and, hopefully everything works out and comes out in our favor.
Heck yeah. So what was the injury from last year that you were dealing with?
Well, it's something so silly. I, obviously, like everybody, I road biked a ton during the week for training.
Mm-hmm.
And I live in a small town. We don't even have a caution light or anything like that. It's such a small town, and so it's really nice to road bike around here. And I was just doing this one loop, and just out of nowhere, I got attacked by a dog, and he actually, I guess he was going to bite for my front wheel, and just nailed my wheel, and I crashed, and I broke my scaphoid in my wrist and had to have a pin put in.
Oh, no.
And, yeah, so that was a big struggle for me, coming back from that. Just being able to hold on for 3 hours after that was a tough deal. And, yeah, so it was a struggle all year to kind of get back from that one. And, now we're, like I said, we're really strong now, and, we feel great. So definitely not going to take that loop again. But, yeah, it's been good. So, yeah, like I said, my wrist is all better. We're feeling good, and I'm excited.
Man, that's such a gnarly way to get injured.
Yeah, and something so silly too. It was something that could be avoided, I guess. But You know, and like I said, he came out of absolutely nowhere, and you know, and also, you know, I've never had anything remotely weird happen while I'm road biking here, just because it's in such a small area.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, not saying that I wasn't paying attention, but I just wasn't expecting something like that to happen. So, you know, now I'm definitely more alert when I'm cycling, and you know, yeah, I guess it's a learning experience. And, you know, you hear about stuff happening all the time, and you know, you're kind of like, well, that's weird. That's not going to happen to me, though. I mean, like, you know, it's so weird to think about that. You're like, there's no way that could happen to me, and then, you know, boom, you know, it was actually almost a year. It was a year ago, I think, the Thursday before the Sprint Enduro that it actually happened. So,
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've lost several people in the community over the past few years from getting struck by cars and everything while road biking, and some of those obvious dangers you're aware of and you see, and that's the things that you really think about. But a dog coming out of nowhere and biting your front tire and sending you over the bars, I don't know how many people have went out for a road bike thinking that was how it was going to end up.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's terrible hearing about, you know, some of the accidents that have happened. You know, like with Mickey Hayden, that was you know, a really big thing when it happened, and you know, it's just terrible when it happens. And you know, I mean, you can put a light on your bicycle and all that, but it's still dangerous to go out there. So, like I said, even though that happened, I'm still lucky to live in a small town. You know, I'll see like 6 cars on a 20-mile bike ride. So, you know, cars aren't really that big of a issue where I'm from. And obviously, I always time my road bikes to where I'm not going, where the people are getting off of work and stuff like that. So, you know, it's all about timing, and, you know, I guess being aware of your surroundings for sure too.
Yeah, definitely. And also know Dale Cook, the driver for the factory KTM rig, he was actually struck by a car while road biking and passed away. So it's definitely a good way to train, but there's definitely a lot of present dangers there, just like pretty much anything else that we're all doing. So
yeah, for sure.
But speaking of injuries, we mentioned you came home with the win this weekend. It was almost spoiled and by one particular tree, but Mac Faint photographer, he was out there, and I don't mean to laugh, but man, when I saw this picture, I had to zoom in on it a couple times. I had to look at it. I saw it shared everywhere. Yeah. It's kind of blown up at this point. Walk us through that. What in the world happened with this famous tree photo?
Well, first off, can you believe that Mac Faint was able to grab that specific moment?
No, and
unreal.
I kind of got my start into this whole media thing and whatever I've done now by taking photos. And so that was my first thing, is just appreciating the fact that he was out there in the middle of the woods and caught that.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. But like I said, you know, both courses were pretty sandy, so towards the end of the weekend, it was pretty much, you know, sand rollers all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
And it started to get faster to be able to blitz a couple and then double a few of them. And before that tree, I believe I was going, you know, double. And for some reason, I don't know if I hit a root or something like that, I jumped and my body kind of went one way and my bike went the other way. It's almost like I lost my balance in the air. And when I landed, I saw the tree coming, and it was like I had no control of the bike, and it was just game over, and I just nailed the tree. But honestly, you know, I'm lucky to be okay after that one, because it looks nasty. But it really wasn't as bad as most people are probably thinking it is. Just, you know, it looks like I'm going 175 miles an hour and I hit the tree. You know, it looks like I was, you know, just wide open, going as fast as I could, and I hit the tree, just because the way my body is and my head is turned, it looks gruesome. But yeah, I had a 18-second lead coming into that test, and when it happened, you know, I didn't have time to even think like, oh my goodness, I hit a tree.
But what test was it in?
It was in the Enduro test.
Well, I mean,
And
what test of the day? Was it early on in the day or?
oh no, it was towards the end. I had 2 tests to go after that.
Gotcha.
So it was crunch time, but I had a 18-second lead coming into that test, and I lost it by 4 seconds. And so we had to. Luckily, it was towards the end of the test because my radiator was all bent, my shroud was pointed straight out at 90 degrees, my front brake cable busted in half, and I was lucky that there was a course sweeper that saw it happen because my transponder flew off on impact, and he was able to radio back to the guys doing the scoring that I had lost my transponder. So if it wasn't for them catching my time, I probably would have been, done for sure because they wouldn't have known that I lost my transponder. So it kind of all worked out together. But then, Tom Fleming was able to come over, and me and my dad and him, we swapped out the radiator, the shroud, and a front brake, and I think like 12 minutes, and we were able to get back out there, and we killed it on the cross test, and we were able to get the lead back and cruise to the finish after that. It was a very stressful and, intense couple tests, but once it was over, we were all, kind of laughing at the situation at that point.
Dang. Yeah, that's gnarly, and I've actually been the announcer for Full Gas for the past 2 years, so I can certainly back you up in saying that track crew does a really good job. That's awesome they were able to catch that and still get your time, as you know, at those things every single second counts. But man, what an awesome story. So not only you get your first Full Gas win, but you get a hell of a story to go along with it, and a picture that I'm sure that you'll keep for forever. But I mean, just looking at the picture, as soon as you told me you were injured last year, that was my first concern. But your wrists in the pictures are still full throttle handlebar position past the tree. So I'm assuming you didn't hit the tree or hit the wrist with your tree. But I mean, how are you feeling 2 days afterwards now? Are you banged up at all? I mean, was it just the bike that took all of it?
Honestly, it's funny. I went to bed that night going, man, I'm not even that sore. I mean, my thumb was a little sore, and I got a Charlie horse. And I was like, man, that's great. I don't even feel like I hit a tree. I mean, this is great. I woke up the next day, and I was like, oh, Lord. But I was pretty sore yesterday, but honestly, today I feel great. It's crazy how the body can recover. I foam rolled a ton yesterday, and luckily I do a ton of foam rolling and stretching, so I'm sure that, that impact like that, being able to, stay loose instead of tightening up definitely saved us from a possible nagging injury that I don't want to go into the GNCC series with. So, my trainer, Rob Beams, makes sure to keep me on top of that on stretching and foam rolling. So, that everything helps. So, that's a true statement too. You stretch and foam roll, you can do stuff like that and get away from it.
Man, absolutely. And like you said, I don't think you could center punch the tree any more than you did, and for you to walk away with no real injuries or even really that banged up, that's insane.
Yeah, for sure. I thought, and the time is so sensitive for the sprint enduro. Like you said, it's funny because you hear all these people say, if you, slide the front wheel or slide the rear wheel around, slide out, you're done for the whole weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And, now it's funny because you can say, well, you can smack a tree and you still might not be done for the weekend, but you need to get up and go.
Yep.
It's funny because I didn't even have time to, for it to register in my brain that I hit a tree. And when I got back to the trail, back to the van, I was like, man, that really just happened. And, it was funny because, coming from moto, when somebody comes from moto, you have all these guys that are going, oh man, moto guys, they're coming over here, everybody water the course, make sure it's all smooth and everything like that. So I'm good buddies with Jesse Ansley, and
yep.
I walked over to his camp after that and said, I'm just trying to, be a woods rider in your eyes, man. So I just figured if I smack a tree, free. That's my initiation. So I made sure I smacked it pretty hard. So now I'm an official woods rider, right?
Yeah, I think that's the qualifications, and lucky for you, you got it away at round 1. So that means your 2020 should be free sailing or free and clear from here.
Yeah, I'm a woods guy now, man. We're legit.
So you said that it snapped your front brake line. Does that mean you rode the rest of that test out with only rear brakes?
No, actually, I was lucky to make it the rest of the way with the front brake before the fluid drained all the way out. It didn't actually snap it straight in half. It broke it, but somehow we were still able to get some fluid to the brake line. But we were looking at it after we got done with the radiator and the shroud. We honestly took a break and we were like, okay, we got it. And then we saw the front brake.
Oh,
and
dang.
so we were like, okay, maybe it'll make it. And my dad squeezed the front brake and oil just poured out of it. And we were like, oh crap, we got to go again. So we got that changed. And, if we wouldn't have got that front brake changed, I would have been done for sure, because there's no way I could do that and, sprint and get the best time possible with little to none front brake.
That's insane, man. That is all a lot of stuff to happen in the middle of a race day. So I guess lucky that, or not lucky, just being good, being prepared, like you said, to be able to have the parts to switch everything out, and then also all the foam rolling and stretching and being ready to take an impact like that. So it sounds like you guys were all doing your part, and I'm glad it worked out for you. But I do want to ask, so you hit the tree, you finished the test, and like you said, it's kind of one of those things where it happens so fast that you don't even think about it at the time. How long was it before you realized that there was a picture that stopped time forever in that moment? Did you find out that day, or did you see it circulating when online once it was posted?
No, I actually, because we started freaking out when we didn't see the transponder on my bike. So I immediately rode up to the front to see if they happened to grab my time or found my transponder. And when I was on the way, Max Saint stopped me and he said, dude, are you alive? Are you okay? And, I was like, yeah, I'm okay. And he said, I got that picture. And I was like, oh, no, are you serious? And he said he was going to send it to me later. But honestly, I had no idea that it was going to look like that. And he said, he even told me that it gave him chills when he looked at it. And it was the nastiest thud you've ever heard in your life. Just smacking a tree and just hear that boom, and you just stop. But, yeah, he said it gave him chills, and he was going to send it to me later. And when I got it, I immediately was like, oh, my goodness, that's so nasty. It looks like, I would be toast after that. But, like I said, obviously, I was lucky to walk away from that. And, man, it has blown up. It's gotten, I think, 1,200 shares on his Facebook. And, I've gotten a bunch of messages about it and all that stuff, asking how I'm still alive. But, yeah, it's been good, though. It's been funny to see some of the comments. And, some of the guys were, saying, yeah, they changed out the radiator and he still won and all this stuff. And then there's some people saying, he's a warrior. And then there's other people saying, is he dead?
Yeah. No, dude, I'll be completely honest with you. I was just scrolling through. Like I mentioned, this is the first full gas that I haven't been at and working in 3 years now. This is third season. I was in Florida for a wedding for my family, but I was scrolling through and I saw that, and I'm starting to do these phone interviews for the podcast each week, and I was like, damn, I got to see if this guy will talk to me. So I started looking into it, and I was like, damn, I wonder if he's going to take time out of his hospital bed to sit there and talk to me. And then I look it up. I checked the number plate, and I'm just kind of trying to figure out everything and what happened and what's going on. And then I saw that you won Lights A, and I was like, something's got to be wrong. I looked at the wrong number plate. There's no way this guy won. So, dude, that was my first thought too. It was like, man, that guy's gonna be hurting. So it's awesome to see that you ended up getting the win and that everything's all good to go with you now.
Yeah. Like I said, obviously I was lucky, and I feel that it was a good learning experience for sure. To know that we can work under pressure like that, and to be 4 seconds down with 2 tests to go after leading all weekend, it could tear you apart if you let it. So I was just glad that I was able to, not let my emotions get to me and be able to, stay mentally tough and get it done. So, you know, it was a good warm-up for the GMCC series, but that's enough excitement for me for, you know, a good while. So hopefully we can just have some smooth sailing races to come, you know, so.
Yeah, dude, for sure. And also a valuable lesson in learning that trees do not move no matter how hard you hit them. But sometimes they do jump out in front of you, so that's not completely true.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm surprised that tree was still standing. I should have went and grabbed some bark off that tree, or a limb or something.
Damn. Well, hey, man, once again, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit and talk with us and walk us through the weekend. And is there anybody that you'd like to say thanks? I know your trainer and any sponsors or anything like that.
Yeah, man, I got a laundry list of people helping me out. I got Rob Beans, he's obviously helping me out, and I train at the Carmichael Farm. Jeannie, Big Rick, and Ricky, they help me out a ton. And Fusion Graphics, DJ at Climb is a big help for me, sending me some awesome gear. They just came out with their new gear. Garnet boots, you know, Cycra, Spaceport Cycles, FMF, you know, everybody helping me out there. Just a, you know, like I said, laundry list of people. So, you know, TF Racing, and, you know, it'll be good to go. And, you know, like I said, it's going to be an exciting year for me. And, you know, hopefully we don't have any more excitement like that. But, you know, like I said, it's pretty cool, all the exposure that it's getting. And, you know, like I said, we can have some good exposure now and hopefully get some GNCC wins. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, man, for sure. And I hate that the exposure is because of this, and but no doubt that you're going to be getting plenty of exposure this year. Second year going into off-road and proving that you got the speed and you got the ability and coming in healthy. So I'm sure we'll be talking to you again, and I'll be out at Big Buck, so I hope to see you out in the pits and shake your hand, and good luck on the rest of your season this year.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you for having me on. I'll be on anytime, man. This is awesome.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, man. We'll talk to you later.
Yes, sir.
What an interview. What a story. Big thank you once again to Josh Guffey for coming on the show and explaining to us what went on and really hearing more about him and where he came from. For one, I think it's awesome to see moto riders coming over to test their skills in off-road. And also, I think it's really cool to just kind of hear everything that he's gone through, from his injury on that road bike to transitioning into off-road to starting 2020 with a win, and now him attacking the 2020 off-road series. And what a well-spoken and well-put-together interview that Josh gave us. So I have a funny feeling that we'll be hearing from Josh more in the future, but big thanks once again to him for coming on and joining us. We're going to transition things now to our second place overrider at last weekend's Full Gas Sprint Enduro, Ricky Russell. He spent a lot of time in the XC2 class on an Am Pro factory Yamaha. He spent a little bit of time, on an Oberholzer Suzuki after that, before returning back to that Am Pro Yamaha team, where we have come to know him for the past several years, several seasons of GNCC racing. He got his first professional win at the 2018 Snowshoe GNCC on a Yamaha. That was an insane day. That was an even more insane night. I've gotten the pleasure to know Ricky Russell a little bit more throughout the years between working with GNCC, hanging out after that Snowshoe victory, and just seeing him around at the races. So Ricky is a super cool guy. Super fun interview coming up, and it was really good to talk to him. Little known fact, I think I might have talked about it before actually, but I showed up to, it definitely wasn't Ironman. It might have been Mountaineer. I think it was Mountaineer when everyone was blowing up from dust and grime. I forgot my filter cage for my Yamaha at that race. I was able to get a hold of Ricky and ask him if I could borrow his, and he gave me the one out of his practice bike, so saved my race and provided me with that filter cage, so I'm forever grateful for that as well. But really solid interview, really solid guy. Nice to see him get a solid finish at a Sprint Enduro, coming fresh off an ISDE gold medal with that club team. We're going to go to the phone lines now and talk to Ricky Russell. All right, we're going to go to the phone line now with our overall second place rider on the weekend, Coastal Racing Husqvarna's Ricky Russell. Ricky, how's it going today?
It's going good. Just made it back down to Florida right after the race and just got back into the grind and in the heat and humidity. So it's been good.
Heck yeah, and I saw that you're down there in Florida now. Where are you at down there? Where are you training at?
It's Coastal's place here. It's in Sumterville is where it's at, and it's kind of out in the middle of nowhere. We got a little house here and track at the house, and then quite a few moto places not too far away, like Spiders just down the road, and a couple other places. And yeah, so we're just right here, kind of in podunk nowhere, no man's land, and it's good though because it doesn't give us too much sidetrack. We just kind of ride, train. That's constant go.
Sweet. So is that like is that northern Florida, like somewhere near Palatka, or?
It's like I just type it in my GPS and I go to it. But I think I'm like 45 minutes, maybe an hour from Palatka.
Okay.
So I think I'm south of Palatka.
Somewhere in the sand.
And yeah, we're like a hour 20 north of Orlando. So it's kind of center
Okay.
Florida.
Well,
Yeah.
good deal. And obviously, making the big jump this year, going to that Coastal Racing Husqvarna team, I know that's got to be a big change. You've been on Yamahas for what seems like forever now, and then the brief stint on a Suzuki, and then back to a Yamaha. What's it like switching to the new bike? How are you adapting to it? How are you liking it?
No, for sure. It's quite a change and kind of a big commitment thing for me to make the change. And so to do it, and then the bikes, I kind of didn't know what I was getting on. I rode one here and there and didn't know how good it was, but I knew, obviously Caleb and Thad, their bikes work well. So it wasn't too big of a risk. And so ever since I've been on it, I've been happy since like day one with our settings. I'm pretty much running the first settings I got sent suspension-wise, and been happy. The biggest thing was 350, from the 450 to 350. You got to ride it a little bit differently. Like the 450, you're a little more on the torque and kind of not revving it out as much because it doesn't build power up there. The 350, it likes to be revved out, and when you rev it out, it still keeps building power, even though it sounds like it's revving out. But that's the biggest thing. I think you can ride it more like a 250 as opposed to a 450. And it just feels like you can attack constantly, like without wasting as much energy. So, been happy. The whole team's been awesome. Barry, Denny, the owner, and everyone's just really helpful. And it's been a cool change so far.
Sweet. And yeah, I've pretty much exclusively ridden Yamahas, and when I jump on a KTM or a Husky, it's kind of weird getting used to, because kind of like you were saying, I've gotten used to riding in basically bogging everywhere, because the Yamahas are really good at the low end and the torque, and then the KTMs, as you mentioned, make all the power up top. So it's cool you seem to be adjusting well on it.
For sure. No, yeah, it's definitely, I think, riding style is a little bit different, but it's still, 350 is exactly what it is. It's in between 250 and 450. You don't have quite the torque, but you still have more than 250, so you can lug it here and there, but like I said, it makes most of its power in the R's, and that's where it likes to be. And I've kind of changed my riding style because of that, because I've always been more smooth and luggy, and now it's a little bit more, not quite to Thad Duvall extent, but kind of, I guess, trying to, mimic Caleb a little bit, how he rides. He kind of does it both. He runs it hard, and then also he's a little bit smoother. So, yeah, I think for me, that's why I kind of went to the 350. For what we do, I think it is the best all around. It's not the best every single place, but for all around, I think it's the best sized motorcycle.
Yeah, and I've heard that from a lot of people, but real quick, while we're on the topic of the bikes, I'm pretty sure that the KTM and Husky 450s are lighter than Yamaha YZ250Fs. Obviously, you were on a 450 before. Have you noticed a big difference with like the trackability or like just the weight, like deflecting off of things with the weight difference between the Husky and the
Yeah,
450 you were riding?
that's 100%. That's one of the biggest things I kind of, I guess, fought over the years a little bit with weight of my old bike. I just, to get the suspension right, it was like too stiff to get it to hold up, but then you had to make it work good. I felt like I was way too soft always. So now I feel like we kind of have that happy medium. Like right when I got on this bike, my stuff felt stiffer than I've ever ran, but now I actually feel like it's a little bit on the soft side, and I think that's just because I'm going faster now, and it's just the lighter bike actually seems to not wear me out as much. So I'm hoping that's for 3 hours. We haven't raced for 3 hours yet on it, just sprints and National Enduro, so it's a little bit different, but I'm hoping for a 3-hour race, that's going to be one of the biggest helps, is just being a lighter bike and hopefully not wear me out as much.
Yeah, for sure. Now, as far as suspension, I imagine there's no way you're running air, right? Are you running like a KYB thing? You're running cone valves?
Stock's air, but we've just been running cone valves, the last generation cone valve with the track shock, and it's literally I never rode it stock. I just put those on, and like I said, it's the first setting they sent me, and I've been like pretty dang happy with it. So
hell yeah, good deal. That's why I figured that's what you'd probably be running. But yeah, so getting into this past weekend, as you mentioned, you raced the National Enduro, and then you went down, you raced the Sprint Enduro this past weekend, coming away with a second place. How does that feel? I know you kind of, I don't want to say it's been your Achilles heel, but I know you probably haven't done what you've wanted to do at the Sprint Enduros that you've raced before. How does it feel coming out and getting a second on that new bike?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I actually went up because I'm supposed to race. I'm kind of contracted right now to race all the National Enduros, and then we had a photo shoot the day before the Sprint Enduro because my whole team was going to go there. So I just stayed up for the week with the Baylor, or Stu and them, and rode some dirt because I've been riding sand, nothing but sand. So, and then I went to GTR, did the photo shoot, and I was like, man, I don't know if I'm going to race. And the whole team was racing, and they were like, come on, you should race. I'm like, I always suck at these things, whatever. And so I was like, I guess I'll do it. It's good practice, and we can do some testing, change some stuff, whatever. And as the day started Saturday, I was a little bit slow, not like way off, but I was a little bit off pace. And then we made some changes like we were talking about, just with testing and trying things, and it was way better. And then I was like, before I knew it, I was battling up there, and then before I knew it, I was up to second by the end of the day, won. And then I was like, man, that's the best sprint result I've ever had since Sprint Enduros have been around. So I think it just right there showed how much more comfortable I am right now going fast on this bike. So I think that's a good thing because, I mean, it helps you in GNCCs. It's a different kind of racing, but I think you do need that sprint speed as well. So, yeah, I'm stoked to get that second place because I've never even been on the podium at a Sprint Enduro. So for me to go there and not even plan on racing and then end up racing and doing well, it was a shock, and actually I think helped in my confidence and everything. So pretty stoked on it.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, also with ISDE being similar to that format and seeing success over at the ISDE, I'm sure it's cool for you to be able to come switch bikes and put yourself in second, especially not even knowing if you were going to race the day before. But
no, for sure. I think ISDE actually probably helped me quite a bit with that type of racing. Cause it's similar, and I think just going over there and experiencing it and just nailing, kind of walking the course. That was one thing the day before Friday. Before the sprint, I didn't get to walk the course as much as I wanted to because of photos and stuff. Mm-hmm. And that might have hurt me a little, but that was it kind of reminded me when I was doing it of 6 days, trying to remember everything, all your lines and your marks. And then I think, like I said, 6 days kind of helped with that. So maybe that was part of it too.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I mean, and vice versa. I think America as a whole has seen a lot more success since the sprints have been over here. So no doubt they
For
go
sure.
hand in hand with each other. But first test of the weekend, you end up in sixth place. That would actually be your worst result throughout the weekend, and then a lot of seconds and staying right up there in the top three consistently. And then there was a cross test that got thrown out on Saturday, so day number one. I think it was the last
Yeah.
cross test got thrown out. What did you see the
Yeah.
biggest difference between like the cross and the enduro test? Because it seemed like even straight off the gate, you were putting up top times in the enduro test.
Yeah, I've always been, I think, just woods. I like the enduro test. Every sprint I've ever done, I always kind of struggle at the cross test, I guess. It's just different kind of racing. It's almost like kind of like go-karts. You gotta set up your corners and kind of like be smooth, and you might feel like you're hauling ass or kicking or killing it out there, and then you come back and your times are like horrible, but you're just overriding and not being smooth. And it's a kind of, I guess, I think it's a European thing, and it kind of relates. That's why Europeans and them guys kill it at 6 days a lot, because a lot of grass track, and I think that's what's helped us. This series has helped us with our grass track schools, and like String and them guys, they always kill the cross test. And actually, I was bummed because the one cross test they threw out, I was finally starting to figure it out, and I ended up, I think, third, 4 seconds behind Caleb and Strang. And so I was like pretty happy with that, because every other cross test on day one, I was like about fifth or sixth. So I was able to pick it up in enduros and make up my time there, and then kind of salvage the cross test until that one that I did good in. And then I went into day two with that mindset, I can ride this thing and just got to hit my marks. And I had decent cross tests on day two. They still weren't quite as good as my enduros. My enduros were always better, but I picked it up on both ends, I think, and it showed. So, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it absolutely showed, and I think that's got to give you some confidence, even if it is completely different racing formats than GNCC. I'd like to think that has to give you some type of confidence going into Big Buck in not this coming weekend, but the next weekend, coming home with a second at a sprint.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, this season seems to be just coming really quick. It's crazy thinking Big Buck's 2 weeks away, but we've been putting in the work. So, and we've had a new trainer, Tyler Rattray, helping the whole team. So it's been cool to do something different and just see where it takes us. And like I said, right then and there, with going to that race and not really preparing for it 100%, but still making some good results, it definitely makes the confidence good going into Big Buck, even though it is a different kind of race. I'm excited.
For sure, and obviously everyone's number one focus, GNCCs. That's obviously the premier series that everyone's contracted to run. You said you're contracted for National Enduros. You do better at the sprint this past weekend, getting second. What's your mind at now? I mean, are you solidified in all the National Enduros? Do you have the opportunity to switch it to full gas? Do you want to run full gas in addition to the other two? I mean, where do you stand right now after the weekend like you had?
That's actually been a big talk the last couple of days. I'm kind of trying to figure that out. I'm going to my goal is to try to stick with Enduros for now, and then try to do all 3 series in GNCC Sprint and Enduros for now, and just see. I mean, if maybe after a couple of rounds, National Enduros, because my goal is to get better at National Enduros, because that's another series I haven't been able to do much and haven't had much support for. So I think the more you race anything, the better you get at it. So I wanted to race a couple more of them and just see different terrains, because I think the next one is in Texas. So to try just to see what it's all about. And then now that I did go get a podium at the sprint, I probably will try to make sure, even though I don't have as much support for it, my team will still be there and everything, but I'll probably try to make it to the next few just to see how things are going. And it's kind of a thing. I only have to do 2 series, but I might do 3 for a little bit and then drop back down to 2. So we'll just kind of see the results-wise and if we're in it for a championship hunt. So, yep.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm sure old Barry 8-time will be watching closely as well, helping out with that decision. But the good thing about the sprints too is,
For sure.
I hate to say it, a lot of people probably don't like it, but it seems like each year the sprint enduros seem to be getting more and more local, as in like around the Carolinas. So I don't know where you're staying at now. I know before I think you were staying in South Carolina, so I don't know where you're going to spend the rest of your season at. But the sprint enduros are definitely a lot closer than Michigan and Texas and things like that.
Yeah, that is one factor I've already put into play because they're the Texas, Michigan, and all Missouri. I think I don't know. I was going to sit down and compare the schedules, but yeah, Alabama. There's some pretty far traveling there, but I'll be in the PA area later this year. So it will be all closer. I think there's even a sprint in PA. So just kind of going to play it by ear, like I said. And it's I'm not 100% sure what I want to chase, but we'll just, like I said, go off of results and kind of make our decision after a couple of rounds of both.
Well, sweet. Good deal, man. I wish you all the luck in the world. I've obviously been a fan of you for a while because of the Yamaha thing, but then kind of getting to know you and stealing a filter cage from you. Still appreciate that. But
I'm still a fan even though I switched bikes.
I mean, it knocked you down a couple pegs, but I'm still a fan.
Yeah. That's good.
Barry 8-time brought it back up, so you're about evened out now.
That's good. Perfect.
At least it isn't orange.
Perfect. Yeah, true. Exactly. Yeah.
But, man, thanks again for taking out some time to sit and talk with us. I really appreciate it. Is there any sponsors, anything like that you'd like to say thank you to?
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. And I just thank the whole Coastal Racing team, Barry and Denny, for making this happen and making it possible. And just excited to be riding with them and all the guys on our team. It's a great group of guys, so I want to thank all of them.
Heck yeah. Well, Ricky, thanks again. And as I mentioned, good luck going into the season, and we'll see you around.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yep.
See ya.
All right, so there you have it. Hearing a little bit more about Ricky Russell. That was the third and final interview of this week's OTP Weekly. I can't thank all 3 of our guests enough, but I really cannot thank you all, the listeners, enough for listening to us and listening to this episode. I really appreciate it. If there's anything that you liked or didn't like, shoot me a message. Let me know. The main thing about 2020 is really putting a lot of focus and a lot of effort into the podcast to make it exactly what you guys want to hear on a weekly basis. So by all means, I invite all criticism. Whether it's good or bad, let me know what you think, and we're going to try to tailor this thing to you all, the fans, and us all, the riders, as we move forward in 2020 and try to bring a larger spotlight onto the world of off-road racing. So thank you once again to Ricky Russell, thank you once again to Craig Oberholzer, and thank you once again to Josh Guffey. All 3 of these riders joining us for this week's OTP Tuesdays. If you haven't already, give us a follow on Instagram at On The Pipe Podcast. We're on Facebook as well. And if you're listening to this on a podcast app, whether it's Apple or Stitcher or whatever you're listening to it on, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel. That way you'll get updates when a new show comes out, and we're going to keep these interviews fresh and keep new people coming on each and every week for OTP Tuesdays. So as always, I was your host once again, Tyler Shepardson. Thanks again, everyone joining. Thank again for Armored Graphics, your support of the show, and thank you to each and every single one of you that chose to download and spend your time listening to this. We hope to see you again next week, or maybe even sooner, depending on when we get to meet up with JGR MX's Freddie Noren. So thank you all once again, and we will see you later on. Bye.